When most people think of The Quiet Man, they picture rolling green hills, fiery red hair, and John Wayne finally slowing down long enough to fall in love. On the surface, it feels like a simple romantic story about an American man returning to his Irish roots. But under that peaceful countryside vibe is a movie full of risks, secrets, studio battles, cultural debates, and behind-the-scenes drama that almost kept it from ever being made. This wasn't just another John Wayne movie. It was a passion project, a gamble, and in many ways, a quiet rebellion against Hollywood itself. Today, we're digging deep into 20 hidden facts about The Quiet Man from 1952, the stories you don't usually hear, the choices that changed the movie forever, and why this gentle Irish romance became one of the most beloved films of all time. 1. John Wayne had to earn the right to make this movie. By the early 1950s, John Wayne was already a massive movie star. He had box office power, name recognition, and a loyal audience. But even with all that clout, The Quiet Man was not a project studios were excited about. Wayne had been trying to get this movie made for years, ever since he fell in love with Maurice Walsh's short story in the 1930s. The problem was simple. Hollywood executives didn't see a hit. No guns, no war, no big action scenes, and a story set in rural Ireland with long conversations and emotional conflict. That didn't scream box office gold to them. So Wayne made a deal with Republic Pictures that changed everything. He agreed to star in a series of low-budget westerns, movies he knew would make money, in exchange for the studio finally letting him make The Quiet Man. Those westerns paid the bills, and once they were done, Wayne finally cashed in his favor. Without those sacrifices, this movie never happens. The Quiet Man exists because John Wayne was willing to play the long game. 2. Director John Ford called this his most personal film. John Ford directed plenty of classics, including Stagecoach, The Grapes of Wrath, and The Searchers. But if you asked Ford which movie mattered most to him personally, he often pointed to The Quiet Man. Ford was deeply proud of his Irish heritage, even if his version of Ireland was more romanticized than realistic. This film was his love letter to a homeland he felt connected to, even though he was born in America. Ford poured personal memories, emotional nostalgia, and family stories into every frame. The humor, the music, the pacing, and even the village gossip all reflected the Ireland Ford carried in his heart. That's part of why the movie feels so lived in and warm. It wasn't just direction, it was memory. And that emotional investment is a big reason the film still resonates decades later. 3. The studio expected the film to fail. Republic Pictures was known for B-movies and serials, not lush romantic dramas. When they finally approved The Quiet Man, they didn't exactly believe in it. The studio assumed it would be a modest release, maybe appreciated by critics, but not a financial success. They kept the budget relatively tight and didn't expect much international appeal. What happened next shocked them. The movie became a massive hit. Audiences loved the humor, the romance, and the stunning Irish landscapes. It made serious money, won awards, and became one of the most talked about films of the year. Republic Pictures suddenly had a prestige hit on their hands, something they weren't used to at all. 4. Maureen O'Hara wasn't the first choice. It's hard to imagine The Quiet Man without Maureen O'Hara. Her fiery performance as Mary-Kate Danaher is legendary, but she wasn't always guaranteed the role. Studios briefly considered other actresses, including some American stars who didn't have O'Hara's authentic Irish presence. John Ford insisted on Maureen O'Hara. He had worked with her before and knew she had the strength, spirit, and emotional range the role demanded. Mary-Kate wasn't supposed to be a passive love interest. She was stubborn, proud, and emotionally complex. Ford knew O'Hara could handle that. Casting her wasn't just smart, it was essential. 5. The movie's Ireland was carefully stylized. The Ireland you see in The Quiet Man is beautiful, cozy, and almost fairy tale-like. But it's not exactly realistic. John Ford intentionally created a romanticized version of rural Irish life. Clean villages, colorful cottages, cheerful locals, and dramatic landscapes all combined into a dreamlike vision of the country. Some Irish critics later pointed out that the film leaned heavily into stereotypes. But Ford wasn't trying to make a documentary. He was creating an emotional fantasy, an Ireland of memory and imagination. That artistic choice is a huge reason the film feels timeless rather than dated. 6. John Wayne's character was a major shift for him. Sean Thornton was not the kind of role John Wayne usually played. This was a man running away from violence, haunted by his past, and determined to live quietly. For an actor known for toughness and authority, this was a risky departure. Wayne leaned into that vulnerability. He let the character feel broken, conflicted, and hesitant. That choice added depth to the romance and made the final confrontation more meaningful. Sean Thornton's quiet strength became one of Wayne's most memorable performances precisely because it wasn't loud. 7. The famous fight scene was nearly cut. The climactic fight between Sean Thornton and Will Danaher is one of the most famous scenes in classic cinema. It goes on forever, stretches across fields, villages, and pubs, and blends comedy with raw emotion. But during early edits, there was serious discussion about trimming it down or removing parts of it entirely. Studio executives worried it was too long and too chaotic. John Ford refused to cut it. To him, that fight was the emotional release the entire movie had been building toward. It wasn't just about fists. It was about pride, respect, and self-identity. Ford won the argument, and the scene became iconic. 8. The movie's music was treated like a character. The music in The Quiet Man isn't just background noise. It's woven into the storytelling. Irish folk tunes, traditional melodies, and emotional orchestral cues help guide the mood of each scene. Composer Victor Young blended authentic Irish music with Hollywood scoring techniques to create something both familiar and cinematic. That music plays a huge role in why the film feels warm and nostalgic. Even viewers who don't consciously notice the score still feel its emotional pull. It's one of those soundtracks that quietly does a lot of heavy lifting. 9. Many villagers were played by locals. To make the village of Innisfree feel authentic, John Ford cast many local Irish residents in supporting and background roles. These weren't trained actors. They were farmers, shopkeepers, and everyday people who brought natural behavior and rhythms to the scenes. Their presence added texture and realism to the film. The gossip, the humor, and the community spirit feel genuine because, in many ways, they were. Ford understood that authenticity doesn't always come from professional performance. 10. The film was shot almost entirely on location. At a time when many movies relied heavily on studio sets, The Quiet Man was filmed largely on location in Ireland. The village of Tsone became the primary filming site, and its landscapes were captured in rich Technicolor. Shooting on location was expensive and complicated, but Ford believed it was necessary. The natural light, real weather, and authentic environment gave the film a visual depth that studio backlots couldn't replicate. Today, Tsone is still closely associated with the movie, drawing fans from around the world. 11. Technicolor was used to maximum effect. The Quiet Man is often cited as one of the most beautiful Technicolor films ever made. John Ford and cinematographer Winton C. Hawk worked carefully to use color as part of the storytelling. The greens of the countryside, the reds of Mary Kate's hair, and the warm tones of village life were all carefully balanced. This wasn't accidental. Ford understood how color could evoke emotion. The result is a movie that still looks stunning even decades later, especially when restored properly. 12. The film faced cultural criticism. While audiences loved The Quiet Man, some critics, especially in Ireland, weren't thrilled. They argued the film reinforced outdated stereotypes about Irish life and culture. The exaggerated accents, romantic rural setting, and emphasis on tradition didn't reflect modern Ireland. John Ford was aware of these criticisms, but didn't back down. He viewed the film as a personal fantasy, not a sociological statement. Over time, many critics softened their stance, recognizing the film's emotional honesty even if its realism was questionable. 13. The script went through multiple rewrites. The script for The Quiet Man evolved significantly during development. Early drafts leaned more heavily into drama, while later versions embraced humor and warmth. John Ford encouraged improvisation on set, especially during dialogue-heavy scenes. That flexibility helped the characters feel more natural. Conversations overlap, jokes land casually, and emotional moments feel earned rather than scripted. It's one of the reasons the film feels so alive. 14. Maureen O'Hara fought for her character's strength. Mary Kate Danaher is not a submissive character, and that was important to Maureen O'Hara. She pushed back against any interpretation that made Mary-Kate passive or weak. O'Hara insisted her character's pride, anger, and emotional demands were essential to the story. That insistence paid off. Mary-Kate became one of the most memorable female characters in classic cinema, someone who matched John Wayne's presence rather than fading into the background. 15. The Oscar win was a big surprise. At the Academy Awards, The Quiet Man earned multiple nominations and won for Best Director and Best Cinematography. For Republic Pictures, this was huge. The studio rarely received Oscar recognition. John Ford's win was especially meaningful because it validated a project many people had doubted. The awards confirmed that the movie wasn't just popular, it was artistically respected. 16. John Ford's direction was more subtle than usual. Ford was known for bold visual storytelling, but in The Quiet Man, he often let scenes breathe. Long takes, gentle pacing, and quiet moments were allowed to exist without interruption. That restraint gave the movie its emotional weight. Ford trusted the story and the performances. He didn't rush anything, and that patience paid off. 17. The pub scenes were carefully choreographed. The pub scenes might feel chaotic and spontaneous, but they were meticulously planned. Ford staged the movement of actors, timing of jokes, and rhythm of dialogue to create controlled chaos. Those scenes showcase Ford's ability to balance humor with structure. They feel loose, but they're not accidental. 18. The ending was debated internally. The film's resolution, especially how Sean Thornton resolves his conflict, was debated during production. Some wanted a more traditional Hollywood ending. Ford insisted on an ending that honored Irish storytelling traditions, where pride and community mattered as much as romance. That choice gave the ending emotional closure without turning it into a simple fairy tale. 19. The film influenced later romantic dramas. The Quiet Man influenced countless romantic films that followed. Its blend of humor, conflict, and cultural identity became a template for stories about outsiders finding belonging. You can see its DNA in later films that focus on small communities, strong-willed love interests, and emotionally restrained protagonists. 20. The Quiet Man became a personal legacy film. For both John Wayne and John Ford, The Quiet Man became more than just another credit. It was a film they took pride in for the rest of their lives. Wayne often cited it as one of his favorites, and Ford viewed it as a deeply personal achievement. That emotional investment shows on screen. The movie doesn't feel manufactured. It feels loved. The Quiet Man may look simple, but its journey to the screen was anything but. It was a film built on passion, stubbornness, and belief in a story that didn't fit Hollywood trends. And maybe that's why it still works. It's honest in its emotions, even when it's romanticized in its setting. If you've only ever watched The Quiet Man as a cozy classic, maybe now you'll see it a little differently. A movie that fought to exist, just like the man at its center. If you enjoyed this deep dive into classic cinema, don't forget to like, subscribe, and let us know which classic film you want us to explore next.